I'm absolutely certain that the thing that separates good investors from bad investors is getting the right deal on the front end. But fortunately, former hostage negotiator Chris Voss wrote a book called Never Split the Difference. We've taken those tactics and applied them in a direct-to-seller home buying process and made a whole video about it. First, you need to bend their reality, and we're gonna use 3 different methods from the book. One is applying prospect theory and loss aversion. And to help you understand what that is, let's take 2 people. One is given a $50 bill. The other one is given $100, but has to give 50 back. They both end up with $50, but the one that didn't have to give any back is much happier. And so how does that apply to us? Well, think about when you go and sell your house through a real estate agent. Yeah, you might get more money on the open market, but you still got to pay a real estate agent. You still have to pay unknown fees for inspection resolutions, appraisal resolutions, and people don't like that. They're loss averse. Or consider selling to a wholesaler who I've actually heard some of these guys only close on 50% of the contracts that they get. That means that for some of these people, they move out of their house and then they get a call saying, hey, I'm not closing. And using those examples, you can do exactly what Chris tells us to do, and that's show them something concrete that they have to lose. Next, you need to give them anchors to reframe the conversation. And what does that look like for us? It's something like this. Hey, we actually bought another house in the neighborhood for $120,000. And now you've helped them see the new reality. But I suggest if you do give a number like that, you take the sting out of a little bit by saying, but your house is in better shape than that one. And finally, you give them specific numbers, not like, hey, I'll give you around 180 grand for this. You say, I'll give you $173,394 for that house. Having a specific number makes it seem like it didn't just come out of thin air. Therefore, it's not as negotiable. And truly, your number shouldn't come out of thin air. You're a pro, right? But to truly understand how to use those tactics, we're gonna need to rewind a little bit. First, you really need to understand the whole sales process because these tactics are tools that you will apply throughout the whole thing. There's not really a step-by-step process. See, these dark arts of bending people's realities and sitting at the negotiation table like we just were, that's what most people perceive as a negotiation. But in reality, the negotiation table is only a small part of the sales process. Now, we're talking specifically about a sales appointment to buy somebody's house. And the way that I outline the sales process is 5% is what we call the intro. And then 75% of that process is the walkthrough. And then 15% negotiation table. And the last 5% is going to be what we call the transition. Now, notice the different setting here. That's because these are my ideas, not Chris Voss's. Now, bad salespeople have been trained to do most of their work at the negotiation table and basically drive people into what we call a yes funnel. Here's what a yes funnel sounds like. Hey, is this your house? Well, yeah. Can I talk to you about the house for a second? I guess. Have you ever thought about having a way nicer house? Well, yeah, everybody has. Then can I buy your house? Yeah, right, it's cringy. And the whole concept is that people get yes momentum and ultimately they'll say yes to your final offer. These are the methods that people have been using for years. And basically what it's done is it's given society an allergy to anybody that resembles a salesperson.
It feels like somebody wants to sell me something!
I told you he was on to us.
That means that people immediately put up their walls because there's this cloud of skepticism around any sort of sales. And that's why Chris Voss teaches us that instead of asking these yes questions, we instead reach for a no. It's this simple. Instead of asking, do you have time to talk? Ask, is now a bad time to talk? Because Chris Voss tells us there's actually 3 different types of yes. One is the confirmation yes. This is answering yes to those inconsequential questions like, is this your house? Would you love to have a way better house? This is an innocent yes. There is no promise of action. And then there's the commitment yes. This is a promise to action. This is the yes that every sales method is building up to. And then 3, the counterfeit yes. This disguises itself as the commitment yes, but underlying that yes is really a, could you please just get out of here? In this game, that might mean they actually sign a contract, but then they never show up to the closing table. The problem is when you get a yes, you don't know which one you're getting. That's why no is actually a great answer to get from somebody. I mean, it might not sound intuitive, but for real, when they say no, it forces them to think through things thoroughly. No gives them autonomy. And as Chris Voss says, no is the start of your negotiation. When people feel like they're not in control of a situation, they adopt what psychologists call a hostage mentality. That means they'll likely react to that lack of agency. Ultimately, you increase that cloud of skepticism we talked about earlier. This lack of autonomy not only increases that cloud of skepticism that we talked about earlier, but it also makes people extremely defensive, and sometimes they even lash out at you in anger. And if you've ever had a painful phone call where you're getting cussed out by the seller or even kicked out of their house, it's likely because they felt held captive by your line of thinking. But on the flip side, saying no makes them feel safe and secure. So instead of do you agree, ask do you disagree? Or instead of can you do this, instead ask is it a ridiculous idea for me to ask? It's really that simple. Now, a quick side note on one of his best no questions is, have you given up on this deal? Now, it's got to be used in context, but it'll get somebody who's ghosted you to respond almost 100% of the time. Now, I know it's hard to understand why no questions are so effective until you've practiced them a little bit. But basically, no allows the real issues to be brought forth. It protects people from making ineffective decisions. It slows things down so they can really think about the decisions they're making. And it makes people feel emotionally comfortable to sit in the pocket and have a conversation with you. Ultimately, these questions are going to boost your authority. But as you learned, authority is only part of the equation. The way I see it, it's authority times the value proposition equals the strength of the offer. Therefore, if your authority is 0, that means that your offer is worth nothing. And authority is based upon 3 things, so all of these have to align. Number 1, rapport. That means, do you vibe with the person? Do they like you? 2 is trust. Do they believe that you're going to attempt to do what you have said you're going to do? And 3 is expertise. Do you have the ability to deliver what you're promising? So what is a value proposition? Well, this is what sets us apart from being just a commodity, meaning its only value is based upon the price or the cost. The key to this idea is that people don't buy based upon logic. They buy based upon emotions. So to build a great value proposition, we first need to understand the problems that people are facing, and then the pain points, the emotion underneath that problem. And then we need to align the solutions that our company or ourself offers with those pain points. The more aligned the solution that you offer is to the pain point, the higher the value proposition. The key to this is that people don't buy based upon logic. They buy based upon emotion. So to build your value proposition, you need to understand the problems they are facing, the pain points or the emotion that underlies that problem. And then you need to align the solutions that you offer with those pain points. And the more aligned that can be, the stronger your value proposition. To build a great value proposition, you really need to understand the problems that the seller's facing, and then the pain points or the emotion that underlies that problem. And then you're going to craft solutions to those pain points. And the more aligned those solutions are with the pain points, the stronger your value proposition. For example, if the problem they're facing was they had a foreclosure that was coming soon, well, your solution might be that you can close really fast and prevent that. But then take that a step further. The pain point behind the foreclosure is that it'd be really embarrassing to have to tell everybody they knew that they got foreclosed on. And it would be on their credit history for everybody else to see. So now your solution may sound a little bit more like, we can close really fast so nobody has to know about this. So once you understand what really bothers them, you can craft a great value proposition, which combined with good authority will equal a strong offer. Now the key to problems and pain points is that maybe you do know what those are, but what you really want to do is make sure that they are coming to the conclusion on their own. They're finding the problems and the pain points. Cool. And this is where Chris Voss uses what he calls mirrors.
Mirrors?
Yeah, they're like tools to help people elaborate.
Elaborate?
Yeah, like they go deeper about the problems that they're having and they think about the pain points. Yeah, that's right. That's what a mirror is. It's that simple. You basically just repeat 1 to 3 of the last words that they just said. And I know it seems awkward, like they're gonna notice it, but I'm telling you, nobody ever notices. And this is a great tool. I mean, it's the one that therapists use because it's so effective in making progress in any conversation. You just let the other side fill the uncomfortable silence with valuable information. It's such a great tactic that in a study done by Richard Wiseman, waitresses and waiters who used mirroring as opposed to positive affirmations received an average of 70% more on their tips. Now remember, as a good salesman, what you're trying to do is build a strong value proposition. And the way I see this sales process is like an oil rig that's drilling for oil. The pools of oil underneath the earth are the pain points, and your tool for digging are mirrors. This is also a great way to build rapport because the people who seem most interesting are those that show the most interest in you because we're all narcissists. And that's the thing about being good at sales. Most think that those who have the gift of gab are the best salespeople, but the truth is those who talk less are the best. You want the other side to do 90% of the talking. However, when you do talk, you need to keep in mind that your tone matters. Voss teaches us about 3 different tonalities. One is the late night FM DJ. And then there's the playful positive voice. And this is the default tonality that you should be using. And then there's the positive playful voice that should be your default because there's actually studies done that say being in a positive state of mind makes people 31% smarter. And smarter means they have a clearer state of mind. And that's what you need because it's not good enough for you to tell them what their problems are or their pain points are. You need them to find them for themselves. And third is the assertive voice. And you're really only going to use that in rare occasions. Remember, the key here is listening. I mean, truly listening and understanding how the other side is feeling. You need to be really mindful here because you're looking for grimaces or frowns or hesitations in the way they talk. You're really using your intuition here, so you have to stay focused. And what you're finding here are the obstacles in the way of getting you to those pain points. And you need to find a way to overcome those obstacles. And that's where Chris Voss introduces us to labels. So how do you put a label on these feelings that you noticed? Like this. It seems like you're a little hesitant there. It looks like something just crossed your mind. It sounds like that was difficult for you. Notice that it seems like, it feels like, it sounds like, not I feel like, or I'm hearing that. You want to take yourself out of it. And that's what Chris Voss calls tactical empathy. It's the demonstration of understanding. And people don't buy from the person they like the most. They buy from the person who understands their position the most. I'm going to read this line really quick. Tactical empathy is understanding the feelings and mindset of another in the moment and also hearing what is behind those feelings so you increase your influence in all the moments that follow. It's bringing our attention to both the emotional obstacles and the potential pathways to getting an agreement done. It's helping them see the pain points. Now, the last rule of labels, just like all of the other tools, is as soon as you use them, be silent. Let them sit. Now, once you've used these labels to remove the obstacles and you've used your mirrors to dig down deep to the problems and the pain points, now you need to pump that oil to the surface. And that's where Chris Voss teaches us about calibrated questions. So when crafting these questions, you need to be aware that why is a no-no. As he says, why is an accusation in every language. Why will only increase that cloud of skepticism that we've been trying to avoid. But sometimes we need to make them aware of a conflict that needs resolved without sounding accusatory. You are trying to get them to come up with the solution to their problems in their own mind. So how do we do this? Well, consider these questions. What about this is important to you? Or how can we solve this problem? Or even, what are we trying to accomplish here? Notice that we're using what and how, not why. This has the ability to educate them on what the problem and the solution is, not tell them what they are. It'll allow them to make the realization for themselves. Now, after you've collected all of this information, you can finally use it and paraphrase it back to them. So it sounds like you're really concerned about the foreclosure that's about to happen on your house because you really don't want to have that sitting on your credit report for everybody to see. And you know that what you really need to do is sell the house before that comes to fruition. And the goal here is that's right. That's the eureka moment. That means that the oil you found has broken ground. But that's not to be confused with you're right. That's the same as a counterfeit yes. It's a smokescreen for them saying, if I say these words, will you please be done? So those are the tools. How do we actually use this in practice? What does it actually look like? Now remember, what a sales appointment looks like is intro, 5%, walkthrough, 75%, negotiation table, 15%, and transition, 5%. So most of these tools that we've discussed are to be used in the walkthrough. On most sales appointments, I'm going to do the intro, which we'll talk about here in a second, and then I'm going to get straight to doing a walkthrough on the house, where I'm going to find out how much rehab needs done on the house, what's wrong with the roof, with the HVAC, the electrical, plumbing, floors, paint, etc. So that walkthrough has two purposes. One is truly for me to put together my rehab budget, and two is to apply these tactics. So as you're walking through the house, you're looking for opportunities to use mirrors to find problems. I'm using that as an opportunity to build my value proposition, to get those that's rights. Now, after having a successful walkthrough, you'll actually be ready to go to the negotiation table like a good salesperson. Now, here's the key difference between good and bad sales is as I move from this walkthrough to the negotiation table, I want to make sure that I've already uncovered all of the issues and overcome all of the objections. In fact, if a new objection comes when I get to the negotiation table, I've failed. That doesn't mean the sale's over, but it means I can do better next time. Now let's move to the negotiation table where I'm going to use all of the authority I built and the value proposition that I've built up to give them a truly strong offer. So now you're finally to the negotiation table. But remember, before you got here, you got all the information that you needed. You've already explained the pitfalls of selling with a real estate agent or selling to another wholesaler. You've already anchored the price and reframed the conversation. You've taken the time to understand the real problems and the pain points that they're facing, and you've helped them come to the solutions, and you've shown them how your company aligns with those solutions, how you can provide those things for them. All the obstacles have been overcome. So now it's time for you to present your price. And remember from before, it needs to be a specific price. But this is where we use a calculator that we built, so we can give them an exact amount. So at this point, I'm just gonna plug that information into the calculator, because earlier in the walkthrough, we would have agreed upon what we thought the after repair value was if the house wasn't in such disarray. And we agreed that it would be around $300,000, or at least that's what Zillow said. And then we agreed that on the walkthrough that there'd be around $52,500 worth of work. It would look something like, I know that you have a foreclosure coming and you really don't want to deal with having that on your credit history, and you really need to close quickly. And after all the things that we talked about, this is what I can offer you. And it's really that simple. Now, of course, everybody isn't going to accept your first offer, but that's okay. That's when you'll reintroduce some of the calibrated questions that Chris Voss has taught us. Like if they say, oh no, I need $200,000 for this. Well, you would simply say, after understanding how the calculator works and how I arrived at my price, how do you expect me to pay that for this house? Now, is closing that simple? Not all the time, but we don't have enough time in this video. So let's go back to the introduction and the sales process. What does that look like? And that's where we use what Chris Voss calls an accusation audit. This is basically just a label on yourself. You have to think about all the things that this seller is probably thinking about you and then just call it out. You know, you probably reached them on a postcard or maybe you cold called them. So they're probably thinking, is this guy legit? So just say that. Hey, I know you're probably thinking, is this guy legit? I mean, he cold called me out of nowhere. Or maybe they're thinking that you're gonna lowball them without any backing to your offer. And so you just say that. Hey, I know that you're probably thinking that I'm just here to lowball you with some unreasonable, unbacked offer. This is the same tactic that defense attorneys use in the courtroom. Right at the beginning of a trial, they call out all the weaknesses they have in their case. And that way it takes the sting out of it when those things arise. Now, the main goal in the intro is that you're trying to kickstart your authority. When you walk up to the door for the first time or get on the phone for the first time, you have zero rapport, zero trust, and zero expertise. And this accusation audit is going to allow you to jumpstart that. Now, finally, we're ready for the transition. That's the last phase of the sales process. This is where you're going to guarantee execution. You need to understand that a yes is only as good as the how. How is that contract going to be executed? First and foremost, you want to make them feel good about the agreement that you just came to. And so a lot of times you might say something like, "You win," or "You got me." And further yet, Chris Voss teaches us that a yes is only as good as the how. What are the next steps that are going to be taken, and make sure that they get taken. So you're always going to tell them that, "Hey, I'm going to scan in the contract that we just signed." You're going to tell them, "Hey, I'm going to scan in the agreement that we just signed. I'm going to send it to your email. I'm going to send it to the title company right away. You'll get reached out to by a lady named whatever up at the title company, and we're going to get this thing closed right on the date or before if you prefer." And then you're going to leave that appointment and make all those things happen as quickly as you can. Now, after you get this thing past the closing table, now you're going to need to know how to manage contractors and ultimately get this house to the market. And that's where you're going to need to actually build skills. Luckily, we made a whole channel about how to do that, so check out this next video. Now, this is just a small portion of all the things that I've learned from Chris Voss's book and all of his other resources out there. If you want to find out more about him and what he does, check out blackswanltd.com.